Hello and welcome. I had a student tell me just last week, the first time I took it, the PMP exam, the clock did not tell me when it was break time. I failed because of this fact. So this student wasn't mine when he took the exam for the first time. And then he joined my program. And this is what he told me last week. Because of that, I've put together this real short video related to managing your time on the PMP exam. When we think about the exam, it's broken into sections. At the beginning, there's a potential exam tutorial. I say potential because you don't have to use this tutorial if you don't want to. My advice, and the advice of almost all of my students, is do not skip this tutorial. The time you spend on the tutorial does not count in your total time. The tutorial will teach you how to select answers, how to select answers and mark the question for review, how to skip answers, how to do your review. Don't skip the tutorial. Then the exam is made up of several sections. Section 1 is question 1 through 60, plus time to review and submit. Then there's a potential 10-minute break. Section 2 is questions 61 through 120, and then you can review and submit. There's a potential 10-minute break. Section 3 is question 120 through 180. Again, you can review and submit. Lessons learned from most of my students: do not skip the breaks. I'm going to talk about one section of the exam. So section 1 or 2 or 3, each of them are 60 questions. When you are in a section, you can highlight keywords, you can strike through answers that you think are wrong, you can select what you believe is the correct answer and move on, or you can select what you believe is the correct answer, mark the question for review and move on, or you can just skip a question. When you get through the 60 questions of a segment, you can go back and review those 60 questions only. You can review just the ones you've skipped. You can review the ones you've marked for review. You can review all the questions, or you don't have to review any of the questions. I want to be clear. The clock keeps going during your review. So some of my students are planning to move through questions quickly, so they have time for a review. Other students of mine are saying, I'm not going to review, and thus they have more time to go through the questions. I want to be explicitly clear. The clock keeps going during your review. Then once you submit these 60 questions, you cannot go back to this group of 60 questions. Then you can take a 10-minute break if you want to. You have 60 seconds to decide on the break. You can take the whole break or a partial break, or you can skip the break. My students are saying, don't skip the break. Skipping the break does not give you more test time. So I would take the break and I would stand up and I would stretch and do what you need to do. This is another quote from the same student. You see, the system does not prompt you that it's break time until after you click yes, finished question review. Again, I'm going to say it one more time. When you review questions, the clock keeps going. Let's now look at my suggestions. You have 230 minutes total. I suggest you break that down into 75 minutes for section 1, 75 minutes for section 2, and then 80 minutes for the last section. The first section has 60 test questions. Remember, question 1 through 60. If you target 75 minutes, and there's 230 minutes total, by the time you submit, So by the time you've done the questions and reviewed, if you're going to review and submit, you want to have at least 155 minutes left on the total clock. Meaning the clock begins and says you have 230 minutes total. You want to be all the way through section 1, including your review, and have at least 155 minutes left. Then take your 10-minute break. When you get to section 2, again, I recommend 75 minutes. So you want to get through all 60 of the questions on section 2, including your review, if you're going to review, including submitting, and you want to have 80 minutes left. For part 3, again, there's 60 questions, but now instead of targeting 75 minutes, your clock should say at least 80 minutes, and you want to get through all of the questions and the review and the submit button in your 80 minutes, and thus your clock will say you have 0 or a little bit of time left. You will hear right away whether you have passed the exam or not. This is a different way to think of the exam in sections 1, 2, and 3, instead of thinking the exam in total. It's a different way. Think 75 minutes, 80 minutes, but focus more on how much time you should have left. For those of you that are members of my program, we're updating our final exams to this format as well. 60 questions, 60 questions, 60 questions. This is Aileen. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, I'd really appreciate you sharing a comment. Go to the notes area so you can see how to join my program. Thank you.